I am proud to introduce to you our next presenter, which is Alexis. And I'll go ahead and step over here so you can come on in. Alexis is one of our career exploration teachers who's starting teaching this year at Cope Middle School. However, prior to Alexis being one of our teachers, she was one of our career readiness specialists at, I don't know, gosh, how many different schools you were at? I know you were at RHS.
I was just at RHS.
Yeah. So because of her experience as a CRS, she's phenomenal at really knowing what it means to be a part of getting into the school culture of where you're going to be. And again, not only are you going to teach your class, but you're going to also get ingrained into the culture of your school. And so I'll turn it over to you and do your thing.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
It feels really weird to be here. Like I should not be in charge of anything.
You look familiar.
But and feel free to unmute yourselves, you guys, if your room is ready. I wanted to try to embed within the presentation, like just some little helpful things for you guys that like I've used a lot in the classroom. So one of the things that I use a lot is something called Canva. It's like an online website that you can use to make this like a presentation like this, or you can even
sorry, you can move that too if you need to.
Okay, yeah. There we go. You can even use it, and we'll talk about it a little bit later, like when it comes to like program promotion. You can use it to make Instagram posts. You can use it to make flyers, banners, all kinds of cool stuff. So yeah, I'm going to talk to you guys about school culture today. At first, when Chris asked me to do this, I thought maybe it was because he asked a bunch of other people and I was the only one willing to do it. But then I thought about it a little bit more. And I really do try to be a student of my students. I try to understand the dynamics of the school, of the staff, of the kiddos, of the community that I'm in. And I've worked in a lot of different school settings. And I feel like I've really learned how to be flexible, to be understanding, and to really just try to meet my kids where they're at. And a lot of that has to do with understanding school culture. So I wanted to share this quote with you. My background is actually in English. I wanted to be an English teacher at some point. Thank goodness I didn't do that because I don't like grading papers, like Wendy said. Can you guys see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. So this quote says, "We seldom realize, for example, that our most private thoughts and emotions are not actually our own, for we think in terms of languages and images which we did not invent, but which were given to us by our society." And basically, to me, what that means, kids don't live in vacuums. Schools don't exist in vacuums. We're all kind of products of years and years and years of experience with other people, the cultures that we're in, the families we come from, the beliefs that we have. So we might think, and you don't want to say this directly to your high schoolers, your kids want to think there's something really special and unique and different, but in reality, they really are just a product of a lot of what's been going on around them in the world around them. So just being cognizant of that is really important. So something else I would suggest when you're in the classroom, I like to give kids like essential questions rather than like, you're going to learn this, this, and this today. I like giving them questions to kind of guide them through the lesson. It gets them a bit more engaged. It gets them a bit more curious because they don't necessarily know what exactly to expect. And it gives them like a question to kind of guide them through their learning. So today we're going to answer these 3 essential questions, hopefully. So what is school culture? Where does school culture come from? And how can understanding my school's culture better my teaching practices? So first of all, what is school culture? It's kind of just like the way you think of culture out in the real world. It's the persona of the school or like the personality of your campus. You might think of it as like the way we do things around here. The inner reality of the school. You can kind of think of your school as like a petri dish of what's going on in the community outside of them. That would be like that inner reality. And again, like the school norms. So where can you look for school culture? I would really suggest, like I said, being a student of your school. So look at the school policies and procedures that your campus has. Look at what student involvement looks like on your campus. Be a student of your staff emails that you get from like the admin and the other teachers on campus. What do those look like? How formal are those, or how informal are they? Staff gatherings. And that could even be like when someday, hopefully, we get to go back on campus. Do the teachers get together in the lunchroom at lunchtime, or is that like a normal practice for them? Do they like to interact with each other, or is everybody kind of just off in their own classrooms? Campus layout and the decor on campus is huge. I worked at Redlands High School. Redlands High School is super duper old. We're actually like the oldest, I don't know if we're the oldest school or the oldest high school in California still on its original campus. And it shows because you could tell like they had a building at first, and then they threw other buildings on there, and then they threw some more other buildings on there. So it's really like, it feels super duper disorganized. There's no like real consistent format to the school, and it totally affects the school culture. Whereas when you go to Rev, they built the school all at once. So like at lunchtime at RHS, kids are scattered everywhere on campus on all kinds of nooks and crannies. At Rev, kids are kind of more just in that one particular quad at lunchtime. Totally affects the school culture, especially like that lunchtime scene looks completely different at RHS than it does at Rev. And then school and community data. So I know Monday, the new teachers, we went to this website, the California School Dashboard. This is a super duper handy tool, especially for us new teachers. You're not really going to get to go on your campus. Use this website to get kind of like the backstory data-wise of what's happening at your school. You'll want to look at that number of like kids who are English language learners. How many of your students are socioeconomically disadvantaged? You'll want to look at the demographics of your kids as far as like their ethnicity. All of those kind of play into the school culture. So let me give you an example. When it goes to like school policies and procedures. Last year, I think it was at RHS, the admin wanted to implement like a new academic integrity policy. Basically like one of those policies of like, if you cheat on a test, you're gonna be in big trouble and here are your consequences. That was totally a reflection of the school culture. So if you go to RHS, academics are a huge priority for our school. I would say like it far exceeds sports on campus. Like being in AP classes is a huge deal on our campus. Kids love being in their AP classes. And they really value integrity and honesty and rigor, like even within the students. That was total reflection of the school culture. Whereas on the other hand, I was at another campus, because I think it was Marta yesterday who talked about like cell phone use and all of that. Well, I was at a school previously before this one. A lot of students use their phones on campus. They had their earbuds in pretty much all day long, and it was not a big deal. It was not a school policy. There was no like discipline procedure for it. It was just an accepted practice on campus amongst the kids. That was a reflection of that school culture. For that particular school culture, we just wanted the kids to come to school. Like that was the ultimate battle for us. And so we just accepted those kinds of things. So we'll talk about that a little bit later as far as how does that then play into your classroom. So something that I learned super early in my teaching endeavors was about something called thinking maps. So what I want you guys to do, I want to practice doing some thinking maps with you. So go ahead and get out a piece of paper if you haven't already. And it doesn't have to be like super duper formal. So the whole purpose of thinking maps, especially I think this applies really well into our CTE classes, because you're going to get a wide range of kiddos in your class. You're going to get your AP kids, and you're going to get, your special education kids in there too. So you want to try to find ways to teach them that don't create barriers as far as like their punctuation, their spelling, their grammar. Thinking maps are a really great way to do that, where you can just focus on content and kids don't get caught up in like writing a topic sentence in their paragraphs. So the first one we're going to do is we're going to make a thinking map about school culture, just based off of what you've learned so far. And this is called a circle map. And what circle maps are for, they're a great way to introduce new vocabulary or a new concept to kids, and to kind of get a background on what they know about it so far. So let me give you a better example of how it works. So you're going to have a circle in the very middle of your circle map, and that's where you're going to put this. Whoops, I clicked too much. That's where you're going to put the subject of what it is you're talking about. So today, you're going to put in that middle circle, you're going to put school culture. And then in the outer circle, you're just going to put everything that you know about school culture. So it could be one of the definitions I gave you. It could be one of the places where I said you get school culture from. It might be an example that you've seen of school culture. Anything you can think of. You could think of this kind of like a brain dump. And then outside of that box over here, this is called your frame of reference. So it's basically like a place for you then to brain dump all of the ways that you got that information that you put in this bigger circle here. So you could ask yourself, where did I learn this information from? Where have I seen these examples and ideas? So like the places that you saw all this play out. And then how do I know this information is true? Do you have personal experiences with it? If you maybe read a book about it, maybe have you heard somebody else talk about it? That's what your frame of reference is for. So I'm going to give you guys a few moments, and you can talk amongst yourselves as well. Some of you guys are still muted. I can't hear you, but
You guys can talk amongst yourselves. Just don't open the bags I gave you. Make sure you're not muted.
like I said, this is a great activity for like introducing a new concept or a new idea to your kids, or new vocabulary in just a very easy, non-complicated, not intimidating kind of a way. So like, as you guys are doing that, I'll share a few things that I wrote for myself when I did my own little circle map for the ideas, examples, and definitions. I wrote about RHS. In case you don't know, I'm an RHS alumni, like in real life too. So RHS is the best school in my humble opinion, but you can think whatever you want, but we just all know what the truth is. Just kidding. So for me, when I talk about RHS, I lovingly call it the nerd school. Our kids are like super duper like academically challenging, like they love their AP classes. They love statistics, they love data, they like to know like number wise how we're doing in sports, not because they love the sports, but because they love the numbers. Like, we're just the nerd school. So I wrote that as like an example of like my school culture. The other thing I will say though, and it kind of makes sense, like if you think about culture in real life, like in America or in California, culture is not homogenous, meaning there's just not one culture for the whole school and everybody's like that. It's definitely very multifaceted. So there will be an overall feeling at the school, but think of it as like a gemstone or like a diamond. There's all different kinds of facets and sides to it. So be really aware of what those different facets are when it comes to the school culture of your campuses. So I think we've already talked a bit about like the subject and some examples. What are some of the things that you guys wrote in the frame of reference on the outside? And you could just shout it out at me. Don't be shy, guys. I'm a teacher. I like to hear what you guys have to say.
If you scroll.
I included what sports and clubs there are on campus. I think it's easy to assume that there are the standard however many American sports offered, et cetera, et cetera. But I went to school, I'm from LA and I grew up in LA, and my high school did not have a football team, which is kind of what we always were teased about. Wow. But we were more academic based too. I went to a magnet school focused on medicine and science, and so what got us geeked is like Latin club, robotics club, like things like which other schools may not have had. The school that had a football team may not have had a Latin club or a robotics club.
Yeah, so what's so funny about that example is like, so RHS and Rev are like the two rivals. Like Citrus Valley is there too, but it's RHS and Rev are the main rival. And every year they do the smudge pot game where it's like RHS versus Rev for football. So at RHS on that like smudge pot football game day, ASB went all over campus and they did these really cool like chalk drawings all over to get like kids excited for the game. And so, like I said, RHS is a nerd school. And so one of the things that was written for like the chalkboard, like chanting on RHS was something like, we did better on the SATs than Rev did. Like that was what they were really proud of. So it kind of was like a reflection of our culture, like football's cool, but we know that grades really matter. Like it was just really fun. You would not see that probably at Rev. So yeah, that was a great like frame of reference that you guys had there. Another thing I would say just from my own experience last spring, you can really see school culture still play out in distance learning. So the way schools responded to like the whole COVID thing, even though it was a district-wide effort, each school, their culture reflected the way that they responded to it. So like at RHS, we were really strict, like rule followers on everything. Other campuses, like they follow the rules. They kind of had a little bit of flexibility to it that we didn't really have. And again, that's a reflection of their school culture. So I can't see this now. So where does school culture come from? So we talked about like the ways that it manifests itself, but where do those things actually come from? It comes from our values. So on your school campus, there are certain values that they hold. So what's important to your school? It could be their expectations. So how are kids expected to behave? What are we even expected to achieve on campus as students, as teachers, as staff? And then also our relationships. So who do we choose to be around on campus, or who do we choose to not be around? How do we treat each other? And the relationships aren't just like amongst students. It's students to teachers. It's teachers to admin. It's teachers to each other, students to each other, students to like classified staff on campus, all of those kind of relationship dynamics. And these aren't the only places school culture comes from, but in my opinion, I feel like those are like the top three. So what I want you to do is I'm going to have you do another tree map. another thinking map, and this one's called a tree map. So you could do this like on the other side of your paper. This is a better example. So this is a great way for your kids to kind of break down different topics within one main topic. So it's good to do this after you've introduced a concept and you want kids to kind of dig a little bit deeper. That's what the intention of this tree map is for. It's also a really great way if you, for some reason, are doing like a research project or some kind of essay with your kids and you want them to start organizing their ideas like into paragraphs. A tree map is a great, again, not scary way for them to start jotting down their ideas. You can kind of think of it as like an outline. So for you guys, where it says topic, you're gonna put, where does school culture come from? And then I want you to list for the categories here, the 3 that we talked about on the prior page. So you'll put values, expectations, and then relationships. So again, values, expectations, and relationships. And then what we're gonna do underneath, where it says detail, is we're gonna list places where like the details of those specific topics. So like, where do you see values? Where do you see expectations? Like, what is influenced by those particular topics? So let me give you an example. Under values, I put for the first detail, every campus has some sort of, just like ROP has a vision and a mission, every school campus has some sort of vision and mission of their own. And that is reflective of their values, what's important to us at our school. So you could put for that detail there, school vision or mission. Because what's important to us as a school, our values, is going to show in what our mission is as a school, or what our vision is for how we should be. Does that make sense? You could do your little paddle things. I kind of want to see like what the colors look like. I got greens. Oh, I got a red. Oh man, I failed. No, it's cool. It's cool. Oh no, it's backwards. The camera's backwards. Oh, that's so funny. So it looked like you had no, but in reality, it was a yes. Okay. That's confusing. So what are some other places you guys think you might see the values of your school culture? Things you might see on campus, things that people might do on campus.
The actions, as a student, seeing the actions from your teacher or your admin, they're continuous actions.
Yeah, one thing that I've seen is admin support, and specifically, what is it on campus that your admin are choosing to support? What events are they going to? Where are they showing their faces? Where they're going to show up shows what's important to them and what they value on their campus. So being aware of those things, like, are they going to the football games? Are they going to the speech and debate tournaments? Are they showing up at the CTE events on campus? That shows the values that that admin team has for their school. Can you guys think of another one? Okay. No? I'm gonna give you one for expectations. Discipline on campus is a great way to see what the expectations are for your school culture. So the way they expect kids to behave is going to reflect in what kind of discipline follow through you see happening on campus. So be aware of that as a teacher too. That's super important, especially when it comes to like the classroom management that we talked about yesterday. Being aware of campus-wise, what kind of discipline are they expecting from teachers, but also how are they expecting the kids to behave? All right, so we're gonna wrap up with how can understanding my school's culture better my teaching practices? So for me, what's been really important is I think about something that's called the 3 A's: awareness, and then acceptance, and then action. Where I really saw this play out was we had like a staff training. It was the mental health first aid training that we had on campus. And one of the activities we did is the facilitator was Chris Junker, and he gave us these different scenarios of like these rough situations these kids were going through. And he was like, how are you going to respond to this? And it was really funny to watch how many teachers wanted to fix whatever it was the kids were going through. They jumped from awareness to action right away. Maybe you could do this. Maybe you could say this to this kid. Maybe you could go home and try this. And they didn't really have the acceptance of just what that kid was going through, just hearing them out. So I want to show you guys, if you guys are the facilitators, the TOAs, I want to show you a little video of what acceptance looks like. And I really want you to think about how this looks then in your classroom. So you could go ahead and play the video. Is it video 6?
Alexis, that was great. I love that video because I'm an empath.
That's awesome. Yeah, I really appreciate how that video compares, the two.
Okay.
Like empathy and the difference between it. You're gonna have to learn that skill as a teacher. So just a couple of quick points, how to use it to your advantage. Program recruitment. So if you know your school culture, think about that as you're recruiting new students for your programs for the coming year. If you have kids who, riding the bus home after school for the most part, don't do an after school event. That doesn't make any sense. And if you have kids who need their free lunch from their campus during lunchtime, then maybe hold off on doing a lot of lunchtime events because they have to go and wait in the lunch line to get their lunch. So just be smart and think about those kinds of things. Think about parent communication. What's like the predominant way that for your school culture that parents want to be communicated with? Is it easier through phone? Do they prefer text? Do they prefer emails? Use your Aries communication if you have Aries. I know that's for Redlands and Ukaipa. Lots of great tools in there for you to use. And know your audience. Know what those expectations are on your campus and the difference between staff and student and parent expectations. And then the last thing, it kind of goes with that video, is picking your battles. Ask yourself, because you're going to see things on campus that probably aren't going to sit well with you. You're probably not going to like it. But ask yourself, how important is it? How important is this battle that I want to fight against this predominant school culture on campus? And if it's really not that important, let it go. Just let it go. You're going to have to sit with some really uncomfortable things sometimes, and that's okay. Welcome to free public education. That's just how it is. So pick and choose what it is. This is going to sound terrible. Pick the crosses that you want to die on. If you don't want to die in there, then just let it go. I hope this was super helpful for you guys. And talk to your CRSs on your campus. If anybody knows school culture, it's your CRS on your campus, because that is our bread and butter. We have to know our school culture if we want to survive. So I hope this was really helpful. And this is like the last little quote that I have that I can't see because you guys are really big on my screen. But teachers are the guardians of spaces that allow students to breathe and be curious and explore the world and be who they are without suffocation. Students deserve one place where they can rumble with vulnerability and their hearts can exhale. And that's your classrooms. So being aware of that culture that's going on campus and making your classroom a safe space for your kiddos is so important, so important. And I think that's it. That's all I have for you guys. I hope I shared something helpful or insightful for you all. Again, it felt really weird to be up here and teach you, but Thanks, Chris, for asking me.
Fantastic.
Yeah, and if you have any questions, feel free to contact me because I'm in the trenches with you guys now.